boring. I think I've made it clear. I feel like I'm on a never-ending train with Season 8 of episodes that I can't find to be deemed good. They're just episodes that are either boring, mediocre, or downright sucks. And it never fucking ends. Whatever. A Rockhoof in a hard place. So, this episode begins in basically the old preserve of Rockhoof's village, as you basically see Rockhoof trying to integrate into the archaeological dig.
You're going to have to work faster than that if you plan to dig up my whole village, lass. Let me help.
Thank you, Rockhoof, but we're trying to carefully preserve every bit of history here.
And it's nice to know that this character is still a bitch. Even when one of the pillars is standing directly in front of your face, you would think that Rockhoof would be able to find some history.
Stop that!
But, that's what this is for.
Maybe in the past. Now it belongs in a museum. Safe, preserved, untouched.
Next you'll be saying I shouldn't have used the old sweat lodge.
So, what does she end up doing? She basically then tries to throw Rockhoof onto Twilight.
You see why Rockhoof isn't an ideal fit for my taste. Perhaps you could use his unusual talents?
Of course, Professor Fossil. We'd be honored to have a pillar of Equestria on our staff.
So basically, you're just pushing the whole thing off to Twilight.
Oh, that apple's made of wood. What a horrible trick to play.
Okay, so really the main thing about this episode that I'm not a huge fan of is the tired cliche of the fish out of water story because Rockhoof is a relic that's lost to time. Because apparently all the other pillars were able to adapt to Equestria just fine. It's really just kind of a shame how in Shadowplay, the pillars were just willing to basically accept the trope of how Equestria has changed and not diving deep into it. Well, this episode basically decides to say screw it and basically make all the running jokes of the episode of Rockhoof being a relic lost to time, and that a lot of things that happen in this episode, he just doesn't get it. So, anyways, after the theme, Twilight basically introduces Rockhoof as one of the new teachers.
Thank you all. I know I'm new to your world, but there's one thing I learned when I saved my village from a rushing river of hot lava. There's nothing you can't do with hard work.
Yeah, about that, given that the other stories we saw through what the other pillars had gone through, Rockhoof basically didn't do anything. Okay, that's not entirely true. What I mean is that he didn't earn a lot of it through hard work. He basically took a shovel while a volcano was going down, and then he accidentally hit a piece of Mjolnir and became Thor. That's not necessarily hard work.
And the shovel!
Except maybe stand on stage. So, every creature dismissed. We'll see you in class.
So then we basically cut to the classroom where basically Rockhoof becomes one of the teachers.
All about how Princess Celestia and Luna used a spell to trap Discord in stone fleets for hundreds of moons.
Oh, so it's a class about stories, is it?
Stories, yeah. And we never, ever get over it.
Good.
Okay, even though I will admit Gallus is acting a bit out of character, especially after the huge character development we got from him in Heartwarming Club, I've got to admit, it's still kind of a humorous line. So then Rockhoof basically goes and tells a story about what it was like back in the olden days in his village.
How Professor Rockhoof wins?
Well, that's quite...
Meanwhile, we cut to Twilight and Applejack talking until they hear all the commotion going on, as we see that Rockhoof is actually very lively and animated with telling the story, and I gotta admit, when he tells the story, you can't help but just feel so engaged when he tells the story.
Push, left, shovel leap, shovel through. Shovel whack. Now you lot be the Ursa Major. What's the growl in mind?
Maybe classrooms were less breakable in the old days?
Oh, what happened next?
I also really like the fact that I think out of all the students, Yona is the one that seems to be the most engaged, which makes kind of the most sense, because even with the young six, Yona still kind of feels like a fish out of water, so seeing basically looking up to Rockhoof gives a lot of insight to it, so something to keep in mind.
The huge beasties jump out of the moonlit mist. Their fearsome fangs at my throat. But I rolled clear.
Then what?
She backed me up against the wall, ready to pounce. I looked at her. She looked at me. And I said,
Professor Rockhoof?
So yeah, before we basically get to the good part, Twilight and Applejack pull Rockhoof to the side and basically let her know that maybe it's not really all the best to be a part of a friendship school.
But maybe you could do a little less smashing in the classroom.
sorry about that. To get a bit carried away. The students were so interested in my tale.
Alright, so let's get to the next stupid part, because basically what happens is that during the scene, and Rockhoof basically sees some fire going on and then thinks it's a volcano happening, but it turns out that basically it was just Smolder and Spike having a dragon fire breathing contest, because that's one of the things that the dragons do.
Did you not see the smoke and flame?
Yeah, that was us. You know, dragons having a fire breathing competition.
You and what?
They do it all the time. That's what we were trying to tell you.
We know you're used to being a hero.
Yeah, so this unfortunately drags down the episode a lot, because the whole fish out of water story, this is something that I have seen countless times, and this episode doesn't really do anything new with it. Yeah, because basically, as I said, it's basically just Rockhoof being a relic lost to time. So the main six basically meet up in the castle and try to discuss the situation with Rockhoof.
I thought you were going to try him out at the post office.
We did.
Yeah, so then we basically cut to... So basically then, we basically see the amount of times that Rockhoof tries to get a job in Equestria, but he ends up getting fired because, well, firstly, he releases out a lot of personal information.
Oh, I can find cranky Zoodle Donkey. I need to deliver his medicine. He has a rash in a very embarrassing place.
Oh, I did not need to hear that. Yep, Rockhoof's time at the pharmacist didn't work out either.
Yeah, so basically we see all the jobs that Rockhoof does, and it's to no avail.
Rockhoof's old friends would be happy to help, and I bet he'd love to visit them.
So Twilight basically gets the idea to basically bring Rockhoof to the other pillars.
Even Contour looks different from the old days.
Oh, I'm sure once you see your old pal Flash Magnus, you'll feel right at home.
Yeah, so apparently one of the lines that I skipped over from Twilight is... Hold on a second. There. Okay, so like I said, one of the lines that I basically skipped over was that Fluttershy said, as I said, the other pillars were easily able to adapt with basically going into the lives of basically Equestria. As we see that Flash Magnus is actually basically one of the head guards right now.
Rockhoof, you old ditch digger, you. Flash Magnus, as I live and breathe. Is this your squadron?
After we got out of limbo, I went looking for work for a pony with experience in the Royal Legion. Once a soldier, always a soldier.
Princess Celestia was happy to find a new drill sergeant for her guard.
You know, I would do the Full Metal Jacket joke again, but I already did in the last review, so I wouldn't feel the need to do so. So we see that Flash Magnus is now basically a drill sergeant for the guards, as we then go over to Miss Main, who is in a pretty looking interesting setting when we meet her.
The royal landscape artist for the Crystal Empire?
Wow, your work is beautiful. No, thank you. I've never worked with crystal before, but in my heart, I know I'm where I belong.
You always could find the beauty in things, but there's not much demand for shuttle ponies like me nowadays.
Don't give up hope. See somnambula.
Yeah, so basically this kind of goes on for the rest of the episode, where basically while Miss Main is a landscaper for the Crystal Empire, we see that Somnambula actually holds some kind of like yoga type class, which Rockhoof is unable to adjust to, and then we...
You could take a nap.
Hey, Meadowbrook, your home looks just the same as the old days. Wish I could say the same for mine.
Well, I've had to expand my clinic a bit. Many creatures need healing in this modern world. Oh, looks like you could use some too. What's got you heartsick, Rockhoof?
Thing is, I can't do my old job like Flash, or adapt like Miss May, or succeed in something new like Somnambula, or go home like you.
Give it time. Even Star Swirl's still learning about friendship.
Yeah, and considering that he almost got swindled by a bunch of con artists, I say he's still learning.
Yeah. And I bet Stygian took plenty of time to fit in.
Hey, look what I found. Me and My Shadow, the third hit novel by former villain Stygian.
And apparently Stygian became a writer. So, but it basically just kind of just raises another question, because basically the rest of the pillars were able to adapt to this new world just fine, and Rockhoof is basically just a relic lost to time. So eventually Twilight and Applejack then decide that maybe Rockhoof should be a part of basically the military for basically Sequestria, by relying on the constellations, but ultimately it ends up not working, and because his own time on relics basically betrayed him. And then we get this.
There's no need, lass. Already know what I want to do next.
Really? What?
I've heard there's a statue spell that sends creatures into stone sleep. I want you to cast it. On me.
Okay. So, in case anyone wasn't paying attention, basically Rockhoof wants to be turned to stone in petrifications and wants Twilight to do this. And if you think about this seriously, basically Rockhoof wants to commit suicide. I'm sorry. The fuck? So after that horrible realization, Twilight basically argues with Rockhoof to basically prevent all this, and then we hear to talk about this.
Hey guys, need me to help you decide something?
Rockhoof wants me to cast a spell to turn him into a statue. The answer is no.
Well, it should be time, because I wouldn't even be here to be turned into a statue if Twilight hadn't cast a spell in the first place.
Like, what am I supposed to say? So basically, Rockhoof is adamant of wanting to go through with this, and Twilight naturally refuses.
Whoa, I thought you were arguing over ice cream flavors.
The answer is still no. Why would you want to be turned into stone?
Because I'm a relic of a bygone age. I belong in a museum. Safe, preserved, untouched. I don't belong in this time.
It's up to you to make that right.
But there has to be a better way.
Twilight, please understand. I want to be remembered as the hero I was, not the disappointment I've become.
Dark.
That about describes this whole thing. And then after Rockhoof leaves, Twilight says this.
Did you teach our class today?
You're not really gonna turn into stone, are you?
Only because it's temporary. As soon as I think of a new solution, we'll wake Rockhoof up. I know he has more to offer the world as a pony than a statue.
Okay, sorry to break this to you, Twilight, but, here's a bit of a reality check about this whole thing, and this is what this episode's framing. If this is supposed to be an allegory of suicide, the episode says that suicide is a temporary solution. Writers, here's a bit of a reality check. Suicide is permanent. I'm sorry. This is the sad reality of this. Because literally, people die from suicide literally every day. There are people who have contemplated this whole thing, and people that I know, some of them have gone through with it. Hell, even famous actors have gone through this. And especially when this episode is bringing this up, the two main things that came to mind to me last year were the suicide of the dancer Twitch and the actor of Tommy Oliver in Power Rangers, Jason David Frank, two very famous people who recently committed suicide. This is not something that could easily glance over. This episode is framing that the petrification, aka suicide, is a temporary solution, when in reality, suicide is permanent. I'm sorry, you can't say this type of thing. Like, you can't frame it as a temporary solution. Once somebody goes through with it, there's no turning back because they're already dead. I hate to be harsh about this, and I hate to be harping on this, but this is how this episode is framing this. On top of a lot of the jokes that really don't give me a whole lot of laughs, outside of Rockhoof telling the stories, and then the whole cliches of Rockhoof being a relic lost to time, I'm sorry, I cannot get past this. Alright, whatever. So, after getting past that horrible realization, and we then get this moment after glancing over Spike taking over the whole class.
Maybe like this? Or Felix? What will give the wee birds fewer places to, decorate?
So, what couldn't make this any more of a absolute slap in the face is the fact that Rockhoof is now trying to glorify the fact that he's committed suicide. I'm just like, you know what? I'm not even gonna go through with it. You know what? This episode's already just getting, because up until this point, this episode really has just been generally boring since we go through the beats and paths. I would give this episode brownie points for trying to go through with this idea, but then, number one, the episode then decides to make it sound like that suicide is a temporary solution, when all in reality it is not, and then we have Rockhoof trying to glorify this whole situation. You know what? I don't care. But then, thankfully, we do get a pretty strong bright spot, as I said, we see Yona basically come in and basically give her report on Rockhoof, and this is actually something that kind of rebounds a bit of the episode. I say a bit, but I'm going to take credit where credit is due.
From class report, when Yona comes to Moni's school, Yona not fit in. Moni ways strange, but Yona find friends. Yona meet Professor Rockhoof. Moni brave and strong and yak, not afraid, hero. When Yona grows up, Yona wants to be just like Professor Rockhoof.
Yeah, so this is kind of what I was talking about earlier in the episode. We see Yona be the most invested of Rockhoof's story, and that she actually looks up to him. And basically, she gives the report to let her know that Rockhoof is actually a pony to be remembered. And so she basically brings... So then, after Twilight almost goes through with the spell... Continue. We see that Rockhoof is then telling another story to the entire crowd of creatures to explain what he has done.
The Earth-Nation tried to grab me by the gullet, but I ducked her claws. She had me cornered. So I look at her, she looks at me. And I say, sorry, you won't be having any dinner tonight, lass. Guess you'll just have to grin and bear it. That's it. I tossed her away
it was an interesting story to give that. So then Twilight comes out and then basically gives this.
You said there wasn't anything in this time you were good at. What about telling stories?
It was just a tall tale.
One that captured the hearts and imagination of every creature here.
Plus, Mooney's story's super fun!
As the Princess of Friendship, I'd like to appoint you as Equestria's official Keeper of Tales.
Equestria's Keeper of Tales. Spoiler alert, it is a title that serves absolutely no purpose. It's forgotten about for the rest of the show, and nobody brings it up. So really, it's a title that serves no purpose.
Can you do that? Are a living record of our history. Your stories can inspire and teach generations to come. If you're a statue, that's all lost.
Okay, so then Rockhoof basically then decides not to commit suicide, and no, I'm not calling it petrification because we know what it exactly is, and continues to tell the stories that he likes to tell, and that's the end.
And ponies. And plenty of hippogriffs. Plus a changeling and a griffin.
Okay, so that was a Rockhoof and a hard place. Yeah, I really didn't like this one. I mean, here's the thing. I do appreciate the episode trying to get some kahuna, for at least trying to address the subject. Yona was easily the best part of the episode because we get to see how much she basically really looks up to Rockhoof and how much she's inspired her. And on top of that, I do like how the episode can be animated and bouncy because of Rockhoof, and the way that he tells the story is very awe-inspiring. That being said, this episode is not excused for everything else, because most of the episode was generally just boring. We get the very much cliche of a pillar being a relic lost to time, and for whatever reason, Fluttershy saying, oh, well, the rest of the pillars were able to adapt to Equestria just fine, and it's like, we're not going to get any other potential, when really, at the end of the day, Rockhoof's story was the least interesting out of all the pillars. Not to mention how it horribly handles the allegory for suicide. It really makes this episode go from basically your average boring bad to downright horrible. Okay, horrible is not really the right word, but that whole allegory and how it mishandled, I was willing to give it a pass in How Do Princesses Dream of Magic Sleep. I was willing to give it a pass over there because at the very least I understood what Luna was going through and how she felt about it. I am not giving this episode a pass here is because once again, this is something that the show has already tried to do, and somehow it made it worse. So, basically, that whole allegory with the situation with Rockhoof contemplating suicide, then glorifying on it, and almost roping Twilight into doing it, makes this episode go from average to bad. Alright, so what's the final ranking of this episode? I'm only going to give it a D+. Because, like I said, the stuff with Yona and really the amount of times that Rockhoof tells the story, those were literally kind of the only good things about this episode that kept me engaged. From your general boring episode, but then takes a right-hand turn with bringing up an allegory from suicide and how it horribly handles it and makes it into just a bad episode. So yeah, final ranking, a Rockhoof and a hard place, a D+. Oh my god. It's almost like I said, I keep harping on this, but it seems like that the running time with Season 8 is never going to fucking end. So, let me just go down the list of episodes that I did like out of the season. School Days, Granny's Gone Wild, Surf and or Turf, Horseplay I did like the Parrot Map, so that's 5 right there. The Breakdown makes 6, Moltdown 7, and the Heartwarming Club 8. So that's 8 out of 21 episodes that I liked out of this season. That is not a good thing. And especially, like I said, once we hit non-compete clause, other than the few bright spots in the Moltdown and the Heartwarming Club, this this season just continues to somehow get worse and worse. It's the only reason why I haven't just given up and say, screw it, I'm not reviewing the rest of the season, is because I'm holding out hope that the season has some kind of big payoff with only 5 episodes left. And like I said, I'm not going to give up hope, because as far as I remember, the last couple episodes are actually some of the better episodes of the season. So, next time, hopefully we can finally turn this around, turn Season 8 around, even if it's not saying much. Next time is What Lies Beneath. See you guys next time. Bye.